Making friends is hard. Almost as hard as dating. What? What'd you think I was gonna say? Yes, despite what the popular TV sitcom tried to tell you, making friends is not as easy as it seems. Most of us don't just get to waltz around our friend's spacious New York City apartment twiddling our thumbs all day. Nah. Meeting people in the year of our Lord 2024 is not as easy as they'd have you believe. But rest assured, this won't be your typical self-help, go to the gym kind of video. I want to give you actually useful tips. You know, like good conversation starters to use at the gym. Actionable advice. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around to the end of the video. Also, this video is going to be a bit different. We won't be picking one South Park episode and just focusing on that. Because let's be real, my videos were 99% everything but the South Park episode anyway, so I don't think anyone's going to miss it. On that note, I do not know what I'm going to use for B-roll for this one, so I hope I picked something interesting. So, how did it come to this? When did we start living in a society? Well, there's not one thing to blame really, it's a mix of out-of-control capitalism and changing societal behaviors. See, back then, we used to go to parks, libraries, those wooden playsets where you'd get stung by a hornet at least twice a day. But then we grew up, and the world grew up with us. Those parks turned into homeless tents. The libraries turned into a guy masturbating into a potted plant. Seriously, the public library has become Battle World for the Avengers of jerking off. Next franchise, Marvel, just an idea. And instead of the wooden playsets, we have the bars. Don't want to go to the bar? Well, have you considered going to this other bar? Or this crack den?
Yes! We're going to the crack house!
I'm being facetious, but as an adult, I felt like I was sold the lie that there would be more places to, hang out. Places that weren't just my living room floor in front of my Roku watching 2015 Markiplier because that's the only thing that brings me joy anymore. So a lot of us just feel like we're kicking rocks around, trying to find an excuse to talk to someone, but it's scary. A lot of us feel trapped, whether it's by our runaway anxiety, financial pressure, or just a bad home life. We just can't seem to escape this loneliness hellscape that is the real world. Because it really feels like if we could just fix that one little thing, if we could figure out how to make friends like we used to when we were kids, it would fix so many other things. Well, lucky for you, the Black Pill Road ends right here. For the rest of this video, we're just gonna look on the positive side of things. You know, have a laugh, keep your chin up, and listen to some of the actual best advice on making friends that I've ever heard. You've probably seen apps like Meetup starting to spring up. Think like Bumble or Tinder, but it's for making friends and not hookups. I wanted to go over this tactic first because I don't feel super strongly about it, admittedly. I've tried Meetup a few times and I very quickly ran into some major problems and some real strange characters. No one I'd feel comfortable meeting up with in real life. If you try this avenue, I'd recommend being very careful. I think it goes without saying, you know? Never share your personal location with anyone, and always have an exit plan. Never meet up at your or their house, not until you've known them for at least a couple months. You should always meet in a public space. Maybe this can be a last resort option for some of you. It certainly was for me at some point, even though it didn't really end up working out. And I was in a big city too. If you want much better odds at making long-lasting friendships, you definitely want to meet up in person. But I hear you typing, I've already tried going to places and no one will talk to me. I've been there, friend. That's my life. I've heard that advice so many times and it almost never works out. You just go somewhere and everyone's got their headphones in, no one's engaged. You can't just go somewhere and expect your future best friend to just walk up to you and strike up a conversation. So while I think it's not great advice on its own, we can still use it because what the advice should be, in my opinion, is go to places where people aren't typically wearing headphones, and it involves some kind of activity. The number of third places, which is places where strangers tend to meet up, that fit that criteria is shrinking. You know, think like parks, libraries, I already said before. People just don't go to those places anymore. And that's why the question of, where exactly should I go to make friends, is a great question to ask. The following little segment is a Reddit thread that details why where is important. First thing we need to address is where people find friends. Sometimes people are looking in all the wrong places. If you're going out in public and trying to meet strangers that way, it's a hard way of doing things. I don't think I've ever made a friend that way. It's just too random and unpredictable. Even college campuses, this is me talking right now, this Reddit thread mentions it's easier on college campuses, but I'm just gonna interject and say, no, it's not. Like, it's a good idea to have your Snapchat code or QR code or whatever it is you do on Snapchat, have that on a widget on your home screen, big ass widget. So it makes sharing your Snapchat easier, so you're not fumbling your phone out in that awkward transition to talking to someone. Besides that little nugget of advice I'd give you, I'd say college campuses are still very hard to just go up and ask people for their contact info. So just doing the cold approach is not really gonna work. So don't go to coffee shops or restaurants or bars or events by yourself and expect to walk home with your new best friend. A super outgoing person may be able to pull it off, but for most of us introverts, it ain't happening. So what, then, is a better way? The key here is regularity. You need to pick a few spots where you see people regularly and make that your target area. Some examples of this would be where you live, like your neighborhood, apartment, or condo complex, where you work with coworkers or people from other departments that you might have regular contact with, exercise class, professional groups, outdoor clubs, adult education classes, political action groups, volunteer work. Volunteer work is a good one because people are generally there for a purpose and they're generally good people. Even your church can be a really good place to see people week after week. The reason regularity is so important is because it allows you to strike up regular conversations and develop a sort of dynamic to your relationship. This means picking a person or two who looks like they might be good friend material and learning their names. Then greet them every time you see them. You need to keep reminding them that, hey, I'm here, I'm nice, this is my name. Remember, this only works if you're seeing them on a regular basis. That's why it's so important to do that. That's why regularity is so important here. Use their name at least once a day to show them that you remember their name. And, drop a little bit of information about yourself. Nothing too crazy. Keep it light, Remember the info they gave you for future reference. And you can even write it down somewhere if you're like me and you forget things very easily. Continue the brief conversations every time you see them. Things that you can come back to week after week to ask for updates on, to show that you care. Like, oh, hey, how was that restaurant you wanted to try? Or did things work out at the vet with your dog? Stuff like that. Take an interest and show an interest. Keep the topics upbeat, not downers. Personally, this has been one of the few pieces of advice that has actually helped me. Before, I was just going to places that people told me were good places to go to make friends, but I didn't want to go there regularly. So they weren't exactly conducive to natural conversations. But once I adjusted my strategy, I found slightly better success with it. Just slightly. No long-time friends just yet, but more natural conversations did start to happen. We never got past the, hey, what does your feet smell like stage. What? That's a normal question. Even more conversations did end up happening. One of the best places, in my opinion, that are great for natural conversations is the gym. And you're probably rolling your eyes like, I've heard this before, but I don't want to work out. Look, I'm there with you. I hate jogging. It's a nightmare and it hurts like hell. But all you have to do is walk. That's it. The gym's a great place to meet people because everyone's there with a purpose, which makes starting a conversation much, much easier. Good conversation starters include like, hey man, do you know how to use this machine? Because I'm a dumbass. Or even a simple, hey, you know where the bathroom is in here? Can't they make this place less confusing? The first one especially can be effective because a lot of gym bros like to talk about how much they're lifting and how to use the machine. Even if it is in a cocky way, at least you're getting them to talk. And that's step one. And yeah, I hear you. A lot of the times people at the gym are wearing headphones. That is a problem. But if you notice people at the gym, there's so many people moving around to different machines going in and out of the door. There's always someone moving around. So there's a really good chance you'll be able to catch someone without their headphones in. The gym is also less likely to have those super weirdos that you'll find at like a library or a park because the gym usually costs a few bucks just to get in. Nothing crazy for you, financially savvy people out there, but the few dollar barrier weeds out a lot of the really strange people. So next semester, I might try this gym tactic. Because I don't go to the gym very often, but I do like to walk. And almost all college campuses have a free weekly group workout program. I'll try doing that. So we've established that place is important. Where is going to be the best place that is conducive to good conversations? And you got to go to those places on the same days at the same times. Then you keep running into the same people. But those are general, principles, I'm looking for something a lot more specific to tell you in this video. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and we need to get creative on this one. Here are a few ideas that I've theorized might work, or I may have even tried and found some success with it. The social battery approach. We're introverts, right? Our social battery drains way too fast, and it's hard to drag ourselves to an event, much less stay engaged. We have to find or create events designed around this mechanism. Meetups for introverts, basically. Seriously, this one time, I went to dinner with a friend, and I literally almost fell asleep. Not because she was boring me or anything, but because my social battery was so low because I got comfortable that I almost fell asleep. Legitimately. If an event is too passive, like eating dinner, it can be low pressure, sure, but our body will relax too fast and will start to check out. This doesn't mean you have to seek out the most, adrenaline pumping activities, but make sure it's something where you're staying active and there's some kind of goal, like a game or something, even if it's just playing Uno or golf with your friends. Or going for a walk with someone is a great option. As we learned in the sex education video, men especially have an easier time opening up to people when they're moving around, which is why therapy for men doesn't work a lot of the time. They need to get up and pass a ball around or something. The location approach. This one's pretty straightforward. Obviously, the options you have in terms of places to meet people and social events to attend varies based on where you live. Google your town or city and make a huge list of potential places where you could meet people and events that are happening. In the city I'm in, there's a lot of wine tasting events.
Whirl it around, bring it up and say, hello. Then you go back to it. How are you?
Not really my thing, but there's a lot of them, so I might as well try. There's also near constant observatory tours, which is something I never really thought I could do, but hey, it's something different. These can be very low commitment, Sometimes you can even walk there, and if it just looks like not your scene, you can walk right back, which is really nice. If shit goes sideways, you can skedaddle out of there real quick. So, I live in an apartment complex with 10 or so units. There's 10 potential neighbors. Well, yeah, unlucky for me. My neighbors are extremely closed off for some reason, even more than I am. I've literally only seen them a handful of times, and I've been in that apartment for a year and a half. And there's at least 9 or 10 other people in there. Their studio apartments must be like the TARDIS or something because they just go in and then come out weeks later. But hopefully you'll have better luck. A good excuse to get to know people in the apartments next to you is keys. Specifically, losing your keys. Here's what you do. In whatever apartment you're living in, write your phone number on a piece of paper and tape it somewhere people will see it. You may or may not be allowed to do this depending on the rules of your apartment complex, but if you're in a house turned apartments like me, then they probably will not care. So you write your phone number, and under it write something like, hey, I'm so-and-so in room da-da-da. I'm starting a group chat in case one of us loses our keys and can't get in. If you'd like to join, then hit me up. See, now the ball is in their court, and you don't have to pester them to get them to get your number. If they're interested in talking to people, which they probably are, but just too afraid to say it, then at their discretion, they can add themselves or remove themselves from this group chat whenever they want. You never even need to talk to each other, but it is a new contact. Because that's kind of a good excuse, right? People lose their keys all the time. So it's not like it's a really weird thing to just say, hey, we should start a group chat. I have yet to try this approach, but I think it's a pretty good idea. The shit day approach. One of the most reliable conversation starters is about how shit something is. Everyone's got a grievance about something. And it's one of the most relatable emotions. Elevator taking too long? Those cables, why are they so slow? Line at the grocery store too long? This cashier, why are they so fucking slow? The point is, next time you're in a situation where something goes wrong, you can actually use it to your advantage. Because just saying something like, man, what's taking so long? Is a way to start a conversation. It's a good excuse to start talking to people. The helper approach. For this approach, I'm going to refer to one of the greatest animated movies of all time. My God, this movie is a masterpiece. I've tried to make big video essays on it in the past, and I might still do that one day. There's a lot to talk about with Rango as a character and his loneliness journey that he goes through. But I bring it up specifically because the main character, Rango, perfectly represents what we're discussing with this approach. Because he was an outcast, he had no friends. How did he acquire these new friends? Even though he was kind of a bumbling idiot, he found people that were in trouble, and he became what they needed him to be. People are more likely to interact with you if you're offering help of some kind. This doesn't need to be huge, you know? Do you know someone who's not exactly a friend, but you know they don't have a car? Go up to them and say, oh hey, if you ever need a ride somewhere, you know, I got a car, be happy to give you one. Or if you can't hang out with your friends because they like going to the bar, then you could say, well, I could be your driver if you need to come back. I want to make it very clear that you have to be careful not to devalue yourself in this approach. Don't let people take advantage of you. But what we're doing with these approaches is finding excuses to talk to people without making it weird. That's really the main goal here. I know there's been some pushback whenever I use Psychology Today as a source, but they have some pretty good advice on how to make friends as an adult. One of the things that makes this problem so difficult is that oftentimes, it's not anything tangible that's limiting us. We're simply approaching the problem from a negative perspective because of past experiences. You know, if we've experienced being taken advantage of, or having friends that turned out to be assholes, or we simply didn't have a lot of friends during those crucial developmental years, then we're going to be more closed off when it comes to meeting people as an adult. This Psychology Today article postulates the idea that you should assume people automatically like you before you even talk to them. That sounds arrogant, right? But it makes sense that the solution would be something that we've never tried before. According to them, research shows that people tend to underestimate how much they are liked by one another. Research also finds that people who assume they'll be rejected when circumstances are ambiguous, like when someone is quieter than usual, tend to withdraw and become cold, ultimately pushing others away and willing the rejection they feared. The point here is raising your confidence level just high enough that it allows you to really put yourself out there as yourself. And yes, if you do that, you're going to get a lot of awkward interactions. If I walk up to you and say, hey, I like Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm probably going to get a lot of people running the other way. But who knows? You know, maybe I'm accidentally talking to John from FNAF and I don't know it. If you hit that one just right, it's really going to work out for you. I've said before that confidence makes the dating world go round. It seems to me that it also makes the friendship world go round. It's no surprise, then, that a lot of young men are failing at both. I think a lot of us were always shown the archetype of the arrogant douchehole, and that caused us to go too far the other way, and to be total pushovers now. Like we're all sort of wet blankets. We forgot that we can be nice to people and hold progressive views, and also be a little stupidly confident, and assume people already like us. You know, that's how we were able to make friends so easily as children, because we were stupidly confident. We didn't know enough about the world to realize that maybe not everyone wants to be our friend. But we still made friends a lot easier. Kids have a stupid amount of confidence, and it's often really annoying to an adult. But there's going to be a lot of times too where someone's going to be just like you, and they're going to say, hey, I like Five Nights at Freddy's too. Stinson, a psychology professor at the University of Waterloo, and her colleagues remarked that if people expect acceptance, they will behave warmly in general, which will in turn lead to other people accepting them. If they expect rejection, they will behave coldly, which will lead to less acceptance. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of the end of the video. That's all the advice I've been able to come up with. I don't want to waste your time here talking about stuff that I don't really believe in. There's a lot more advice out there that might work for you, but this is just the cream of the crop. Maybe I'll come up with a few more ideas later on that I think are good and worth trying, but this video is long enough. I'll save it for a part 2. Remember, not all of it will work for you in your specific situation. If there's anything I've learned from reading your comments, it's that a million different people can look at the same problem a million different ways. And I'm trying to look at this problem from a place of hope, you know? I do think the world is getting better. The good news is, the numbers are on our side because the more people feel lonely, the better chance someone's gonna feel exactly what you're feeling if you reach out to them. I bet you know at least 10 people in your life that aren't your family members. You may not be friends with them, but at least a few of those 10 people are in your same situation where they're paralyzingly lonely. And that's gonna make this problem easier to solve because we're gonna have more heads on this trying to figure it out. So I hope this video helped in some way. I really do. You know, it's a bit of a different kind of a video for my channel. Usually I'm talking about penis iceberg and boobs and, you know, funny stuff, but this is a laid back but also more serious video because it's something I've struggled with ever since I graduated high school. And even before then, I became an adult and no one tells you just how lonely it can be. For those of you that are watching this that, you know, maybe are still in high school or even younger, one piece of advice I would have is really do try to keep in contact with your high school friends, because it's not easy once you leave. Adults are generally less trusting of each other, and it sucks, and hopefully by the time you're an adult, we will have fixed that somewhat. But, yeah, I hope this video helped you a little bit. I think if I were to leave you with one piece of advice, I would say you should start believing other people already like you in any conversation. I do think that is one of the best pieces of advice I've heard in this video, and I think it's one of my biggest problems. I'm too much of a wet blanket for my own good. Also, ask questions about the other person. Don't just talk about yourself. I'm guilty of that sometimes. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you think of this advice. What's been your experience? You know, do you have any advice of your own? We can help each other. So, thank you for watching this video. I love you. Good night.